So beginning in year 2020, our keynote speaker, Dr. Frank Kaufmann, he started Settlement Project, sp12.org, Settlement Project. You go online, you can get it online. We have a lot of activities that we do. So he did this in response to the clear evidence of the engineering of the malfeasance under the guise of the COVID takedown and the mass absentee ballot distribution. Since that time, he has worked with major groups, like Turning Point USA, Epoch Times, many others. Those who love America and really want democracy, right? A free country. So for 50 years, he has worked in the arena of religion and peace, working with international conflict and resolution. He's worked in countries like that have conflict in Ethiopia and Eritrea, India, Pakistan, and of course, Israel, Palestine. He's worked directly helping as a mediator there, helping. There's more. Yeah, make sure you shake his hand, because if you do, you're going to touch a lot of great people. He's met with the Pope and the Dalai Lama, many people of important influence in our world today. So he's also the editor-in-chief of the New World Encyclopedia, which is an online general knowledge encyclopedia created to provide researchers with reliable information and combat the ideological slant of Wikipedia. So Dr. Kaufmann is a lot more than that. He's my brother. I have such a love for Jordan Peterson, a respect, for James Lindsay, Peter Boghossian. There's so many, Victor David Hansen. I can go on. The people that are working, a guy named Brian Walters, he started a new union for teachers. There's just many people who are on the cutting edge of confronting, just the lies that are coming through our culture, through our education system. Gramsci from Italy, the 19th century communist, the march through the institutes. It's been inundated. But Dr. Kaufmann, he has really stayed on course. He has been meticulous. He has done the heavy lifting, so to speak. So I don't want to say more because you'll hear from him, but my heart is so, if I have a struggle, if I have something on a personal level, I call him, it's just the right thing, and it's so much, gives me that sense of peace. It's real. Peace is real. We have an opportunity to bring peace to this world, and it starts with ourselves, right? And so Frank Kaufmann, Dr. Kaufmann, is really a person that I truly look up to, and he's on that level. And actually, I have a choice. I can work with anyone, right? I'm still free in America. I did live in Russia for 5 years, and that was a great experience. But I choose what I can do, and I choose this man to be my leader, and I know that he can help and be this catalyst that we need to come together with that heart, of not, follow my way, my small understanding, or not small, but how we can just really get that sweet spot of unity, of people who are truly of good conscience, of good heart. So I want to introduce now our main keynote speaker, Dr. Frank Kaufmann.
Thank you, Mike, for that enormously generous introduction. Sounds like somebody I'm dying to meet. And no, really, this is very kind of you to. While I was listening to the introduction, it struck me, the New World Encyclopedia is a tremendous source of knowledge and information. It is an encyclopedia. It's got tens of thousands of articles in it. We built it very carefully. And the reason why it comes to mind is because we're hearing so much about education. So everybody involved in education, please find it. It's called it's at newworldencyclopedia.org, all one word. And it is the single best place to send your students to begin their research and do their work. Elon just founded Grokopedia. I have a lot of hope in that, and I contacted XAI and offered the foundation of New World Encyclopedia, and I did get a nod from Elon, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. But for now, people use AI now to learn things, but if anybody's going to deliberately try to research, find out anything you want to learn about, Spain, the sun, or whatever, send your students there. It is very carefully built information, and it is so finely created on a value system, on a constructive value system, that it has a little fan club. Like I hear from some dad says, I read an article with my son every night, and I'm thinking, that's cool, for encyclopedia. So anyway, I just thought of that for the first time because I'm working with all these educators, with these people from the school boards and defending the education of young people. So I'm glad Mike brought that up. All right, so let me get into this presentation. I'll go through the concepts relatively quickly. They're not that simple. I do everything I can to make them simple. And anything you need to know more in depth, I am the most available and most accessible guy I know. Anybody that ever writes me with anything, I write back. And so if you see something that seems like it's too quick, I didn't get that, or this is terminology that I'm unfamiliar with, just write me, or, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. It's not a simple thing they've built to destroy our country. Woke ideology is not a simple thing. And the people that are creating it are not unintelligent people. Their degree of intellectual sophistication is haunting. And they've deliberately created a language system or a terminological universe that is impossible to navigate. And so a lot of what I want to do here is provide for the warriors on the front line, the people who we've heard from already and who we'll hear from later on today, and all of you who are on the front line trying to protect our country, trying to protect some particular sector. You might be working with immigration. We've heard people working in education. And I've created this in order, one of the simple slogans is, know your enemy. Know your enemy. If we don't know them, we can't meet the challenge. And these are not lightweights. These are formidable people, and you can see how deeply they've embedded themselves into our culture and into our institutions. So hopefully after I'm done this afternoon, you will feel a lot more confident in engaging the people who mean you harm. We've already heard, like the two ladies that spoke just now already, your blood boils listening to their experiences. And they're eye to eye with people. And we tend to see greed or avarice or corruption or addiction to power. We tend to see that. But there is more there. There is an ideological thing that's driving these people in the first place. They don't consider themselves bad people. And so when we're engaging them, trying to defeat them through the magnificent activism, the likes of which we heard just now, when you're meeting them, to know them better than they know themselves is the beginning of the first step to begin to dissolve or undo. It's kind of the water on the Wicked Witch of the West, right? So hopefully we'll get to this reality. So I call this a war. There's a lot of people that want the right to be kinder, milder, we're the nice side. Don't be mean. Be moderate. Be gentle. Yes, that's true. We have biblical guidelines for how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. Yes, but we are at war, and I want to discuss what that means, because when you're at war, you still have all the obligations to be right in front of your Maker and dignified in terms of your ethics and your moral standards. But you're at war, and so this is how I understand our situation, and I want to point out what I mean by this. Over the course of my lecture, I will be going through 5 parts. And the first one is, what is war? You'll see, and I'll touch on the rest. They're all brief, they're all short sections. What is war? War happens when there are individuals or groups or organizations or nations who seek to ravage non-negotiables in our lives. War happens when we must defend treasure even at the cost of our lives. At that point, it's a war. And what is under attack now is the innocence of American children. We cannot be complacent under those circumstances. We can be polite, perhaps, that we can be respectful in our engagements, but this is not negotiable. The innocence of American children is something I'm ready to die for. And as soon as you're engaged in a battle for something you're ready to die for, then you are at war, and we are at war. Whenever there's a war, there are enemies without and enemies within. For in the effort to protect the United States, the enemies without are the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, militant jihadi extremism, and I make a really strong distinction there. I imagine that the vast majority of the billion Muslims in the world are exceedingly fine people. I hope they are. The ones I know are great. And so I'm trying to find terminology that does not invoke Islam, even though the jihadi militants pervert Islamic teachings. All right? But please acknowledge my distinction there. I'm not comfortable when people are blanketly condemning Islam. I do agree that Sharia law does not have a place in the United States. It can have a place in you can have rules in your church that are that in your church you have to sit or you have to stand. Those aren't American laws, and so if Sharia law can be practiced within the confines of your religious practice, fine enough. But there's one law. There's one law in the United States of America. We've picked one. It's outlined in the Constitution, and it's American law. So, but this is not the point of. There's the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. They are the enemies of the United States. They want the United States destroyed. Okay. Militant jihadi militant jihadi extremists, especially state actors. There are state actors. They want the America and American culture destroyed. And when you're dealing with a foreign enemy, then the instruments of meeting the challenge include military strength, international diplomacy, and our president has for the first time really invested, I think there'll be volumes written on his use of economics in an effort to defend the United States. It's quite a phenomenon to watch, honestly speaking. I feel sorry for people who hate him because they're missing fascinating things that has never happened before. So like him or dislike him, you'll never see a political moment like this, and it's sad. You know, I was watching Joe Rogan interview Elon Musk. You know, and my jaw dropped. He's a visionary of historical proportions, Elon, and his genius is glorious. And my kids, you know, because he thanked people with it, you know, he thanked people, and they think he's a Nazi, and I'm thinking, how sad that you don't have enough appreciation to know that you live in an age of an engineering genius of this magnitude. You're missing so much. So anyway, that's just another aside. But so military strength, economic strength, international diplomacy, this is how you deal with a foreign enemy. With domestic enemies, enemies within, this is the ideological institutional capture by Marxists and what I call wokeists, that's what the purpose of this lecture is, to explain wokeism. So domestically or internally, the battlefields are security, politics, law, culture, education. That's where we fight the war. But it's a war. Okay. Our war, it's an attack on our children. Non-negotiable, non-negotiable. Ready to die. Ready to die for your children. That's normal human behavior, normal human posture. Our families, our schools, our culture, our homeland. It's a direct attack on things that I would happily, easily give my life for, to defend my country. Okay? So the next thing, remember I said I was going to go through these four things. So what is evil then? So that's war. War is when somebody's attacking something that they're not permitted to by me, over my dead body. That's war. What is evil? There are two types of evil, and this is an important slide for me, because most people don't make this distinction. There's corruption and criminality. Corruption and criminality. That's evil. It's evil. But it's seeking power over others in violation of morals and ethics. Everybody knows it's bad. It's bad. It's a violation of morals and ethics. That is a type of evil. Good people on the right, conservatives, patriots, can commit that kind of evil. They can be corrupt. I think there tragically probably plenty are. But another form of evil is to be under the delusion or possession or somehow possessed of an ideology that is false. It's those, and you believe you're doing good. That's the evil that has the grandest capacity to destroy. Because someone who believes they're doing good is ready to die to do what they're doing. So delusion in ideology. So once you believe that what you're doing is good, then the seeking of power is considered a virtue. The seeking of power is considered a virtue. I must have the power in order to bring about and enforce the good that I need done. This poor child, there's a woman entrapped in a boy's body. I need control of the California political machine. And that type of person is enormously dangerous, far more dangerous than a guy holding you up for a coke hit, something like that. Okay.
Who's that person? Yuval Harari.
Yuval Harari. So I was just going to explain this here. The top image are two young fellows who killed someone during a bank robbery, and during their trial, it was all yucks. It was all yucks and giggles for them. It was a form of evil that was kind of unconscionable to watch. This is their trial for a murder they've committed. A person, a criminal. They don't call it. They can't. The range of their destruction is not that grand. But a person who's ideologically false can result in the murder and gulags of millions or tens of millions. And so I make this distinction as an important distinction. The person on the bottom is Yuval Harari. He's a University of Jerusalem philosopher and social critic. He is beloved of the WEF globalists, the whole Davos crowd. He's their hero. Here's just a little bit about him. He teaches that the self is illusory. What is mistaken for free will is a biochemical algorithm. He's a materialist of the most thoroughgoing and sophisticated form. He rejects religion and morals to be replaced by pragmatics. He promotes deterministic humanism aligned with, now here's the type of language that you're dealing with when you're trying to fight this fight. You're an innocent person, you're running for mayor, or you're trying to fight your school board, and then the people you're looking at says that they believe in the decolonial rejection of the Eurocentric progress myths. That is really what they believe. And when you're saying, but what about the children? They're looking at you like you're a puppy dog, like you're an idiot. You don't know anything. I went to Columbia University, I went to Stanford. You don't know anything about Eurocentric decolonial progress myths. That's why you believe that sex and gender are the same thing. How sad for you. So the point of this lecture is to try to unpack some of that, to give us some of the authority we need to not be condescended by people who are, depending on how strong your religion is, you might say, kind of possessed by Satan. Almost, they just believe in the rejection of Eurocentric progression myths. But I think, okay, so. When fighting the war at the level of ideology, of culture, here's what we patriots and what patriots and conservatives face. Cancel culture, pro-censorship. They completely believe in censorship. They're not only doing it just to shut you up. They believe in it as a good thing. That's very different. That's very different when you're fighting somebody. Now that you know that, you thought that they were just trying to make themselves hidden so that nobody could talk against them. Yes, of course. But they believe in it ideologically, philosophically. I'll get to that. Critical race theory, in which it is perfectly okay to be racist against white people. Perfectly okay. It's good. It's actually good to do so. Gender ideology. We've heard a lot about that today. The books that Lisa holds up, I can't even look. I cry, and she has to deal with it all day long, every day. Climate alarmism. Of course, it's a grift. Of course, it's a grift. It's a multi-billion-dollar grift. Yes. We should take care of nature. I'm like the most non-littering guy I know. I divide my garbage. I'm happy that these things exist. I believe in the care of the earth, but climate alarmism is a grift. It's a grift. But those who are involved in it, they're not just power-hungry, money-hungry people. It's ideological, and this is what I'm gonna touch on. Marxism and socialism, class warfare. Open borders. It's grounded in a doctrine called decoloniality. That is so far-reaching and so sophisticated that your daughter comes home from college and you're trying to eat your Thanksgiving turkey, and her mind is filled with belief in decoloniality, which is kind of what they call, I'm using fancy terms here, I'm not trying to show off, but epistemic violence. Epistemic violence. You know what? like I'm lost. Honey, can you pass the creamed corn? I'm not trying to be a bad guy, but your mere existence is kind of marginalized. Oh my God. And she's deeply, fully imbued with this from her professor. She had to write this to pass her test, to get through school, to get a degree. She's protecting your money in a way. But now she's no fun at Thanksgiving. Okay, identity politics, intersectionality, even that word, intersectionality. Yes, we've heard it. Yes, we kind of know what it means. But what does that mean? It is so convoluted, and I'm not trying to just make fun of these people. I'm telling you honestly, they believe that this is the highest form of goodness, and as soon as we recognize that, then we can understand more clearly what the work ahead to do. And police abolitionism, people familiar with that? Okay, all right. All of these 8 things are also part of the ideological warfare. Is the capture of K through 12. And is the capture of universities, right? All of that goes into the education. And so all 10 items are the work of the progressive left. And not only a sophisticated military strategy, like an ideological military strategy to conquer America, but a belief that they are finally going to bring good to the country and the world. Okay. So, given these 10 things, this is the plight of every area needs expertise. Every area needs expertise. Every area, like we heard from Lisa and Leslie, and how they have to give their whole lives all the time to defend and protect the school education and the school boards and things like that. Who's going to take care of the censorship doctrine? Who's going to take care of censorship? It took some guy who somehow had $44 billion to spare to take care of the censorship issue. Who's got $44 billion? If it wasn't for that purchase, God only knows how little, And so that's a whole universe. Racism, the race hustle, the CRT, the reverse racism and DEI. Yes, they're hustles. Yes, they're grift, but the ideological sophistication of these things is grand, and there has to be scholars who are fighting this tooth and nail. So each one of these manifestations of woke ideology, by its own nature, divides the right and the conservative patriotic group, because you're busy on your job. You're busy being an expert at any one of these things. The other thing is that the conservative patriotic side of things are principled people. So your commitment lies in principle. And that's why people on the right easily divide from one another. Because they're not, on the left, they're committed to power. They need power in order to implement the good that they imagine that there exists to do. And so that's why they'll vote in lockstep. That's why they'll vote in lockstep. Because they know that they need power to effect their agenda. And so to do something against it isn't a matter of conscience. It's just getting the power. So deceit, fraud, and is to attain power is not considered a violation of morals or ethics. It's an obligation. It's a virtue. It's a virtue to retain power. Why is it a virtue to even to kill somebody? It might be necessary to kill somebody, but think of all the poor boys trapped in girls' bodies that I'll be liberating by getting this power. So the right, all human beings are subject to the temptation of power and subject to the wiles and difficulties of power. But the right, because we know that all power lies with the transcendent, with God, We don't feel like we need the power to make the good happen in the world. We know that ultimately it's God's world. So we're aligned on ideals of principle. And when somebody seems a little bit not aligned, a little bit not aligned, a little bit not aligned. So the right are always breaking off from each other. They're always breaking off from each other. Because it's like an occupational hazard of being a conservative. Because you believe in God. And in a way, it's in God's hands, in a way. The left doesn't believe, the progressive left does not believe in God. They believe in the power of their own authority to bring about the good that they want to bring about, whether it's climate, whether it's race equality, no matter what they're up to. And so they vote in lockstep. That's why, like President Trump's always like complaining, right? The left always votes, he's right to complain, but there's a reason why it's like that. But on top of that, for this particular slide, on top of that, all these, we're naturally we don't meet each other. If you happen to be working on climate, you're not going to meet Lisa or Les. Do you see what I mean? If you happen to be working on open borders is not only just an election scheme. It's not only to turn blue states purple. It's not only that. It is the fruits of decolonial. It's anti-private property. A border is the evil assumption that the United States somehow belongs on its own property. No, that's what it is. That's why they're against borders, not only just to corrupt the electorate and to give them all licenses and social security numbers and have the vote tipped out to the left forever and ever. It's not only that. It's also that you dare to have a border. You Eurocentric, white, racist thieves of this land and all that you did to the Indians, all you did to the blacks, all you did, and you're going to put up a border? Well, you're like eating more than, one American eats more than 43% of all people in Chad. So it's a virtue, the open borders. And so each and every single area of the progressive, woke left requires experts. And so it's difficult for us to be a unified force. And so the purpose of the settlement project is to make clear that these are not discrete things. They grow out of a single ideological origin point. And I want to make that clear as a way for us to be more united. And so at settlement project conferences, you'll meet people you'll never meet. You'll meet people from every one of these fields. So I want to boil it down. I want to boil the conservative right down, and I want to boil the progressive left down, so that we can start to get a clear picture of the battle we're in, and we don't have to be buried in an onslaught of someone saying, why are you worried about school books when, if we don't win the midterms, or if you don't fix the election system, like all the people on the right are all telling you everybody's cause is their main cause. And we can't afford to be like that. And so one of the things that I want to do is make it simple so that we understand that there is a single origin point to the entire spray of progressive and radical left attack on our country from within. So I ask, what are the basic to each side? Progressive right, conservative right, progressive left. Here's the basic idea of each side. On the right, the basic patriot American idea. It's in our documents. We have one of the great historical and American scholars here with us, whom I love to listen to whenever you speak, by the way. There's a creator. All men are created equal. Not all men are equal. Of course, people, men, but okay. Not it's the Declaration is not all men are equal. All men are created equal. The word created is enormously central to American ideological posture. So people are created. We're free. These are basics for America. We're free, we're equal, we have inalienable rights, and we're created with a purpose, that is, toward a more perfect union. The basic dynamic that underlies being an American is that you are pro-harmony. You want to overcome differences, and you want to work toward a more perfect union. And in order to bring that about, God created us free, equal, and with inalienable rights. And also for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a very curious thing. It's a very curious thing to include in our Constitution and in our founding documents. The pursuit of happiness. I've always been curious about it. So there's two things we're obliged to do. We're obliged to pursue happiness. It's such a great, usually you think of those founders as kind of dusty old folks, very serious, and they add that one, it's like a Christmas card in there, so, and toward a more perfect union. Now that has real responsibilities, and there's kind of behavior that's going to have to go along with that. On the progressive left, there is no creator. Human identity, it does not come from God. It's socially constructed by narratives that produce power, disparity, and marginalization. Human identity is socially constructed and results in oppressed and marginalized, or oppressor and hegemon. The purpose of life is to resist and eventually to control. These are the two basic lines. Whenever you're meeting someone with whom you're ideologically in conflict or in war, an American basically understands life in these things. Your conversation partner or opponent or enemy thinks this is true. And beneath this division, there's no further conversation. And so basically what I've done here is put the content of each side in axiomatic form. The word axiom, it means this: something that is self-evident is accepted as true without proof. That's an axiom. It's inarguable. And it's the beginning point for logical reasoning. Ba, 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 ba. Don't worry. At least it was a pleasant. If it was Mike's phone ringing, then I would have. Okay. Axioms underpin arguments by providing indemonstrable first principles. So everything a patriotic conservative says starts with an axiom. We're created, we're free, we're equal, we have inalienable rights. That's an axiom. And our founders described it as an axiom. We find these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident. I can't convince you of these things. They're obvious. Whereas a radical on the progressive left, it's not self-evident. Their axiom is the exact opposite. What's self-evident to me is that there are rich bastards out there, and there's people lying in the streets that can't eat and don't have a house, and it's their fault. That's self-evident. That's self-evident. They can't understand how you don't see that. And so that at the level of axiom, you can't get beneath that. There exists a creator. If your axiom begins with the founding documents, All men are created equal. That means there exists a creator. If your axiom is that, then what is implied by that is that the creator's purpose is benevolent. That everything in the universe originates out of benevolence. I may not be able to see it. I may not be able to understand it. I don't know why Dad is so powerful and can make me not go to that party at 12 at night. That doesn't seem fair to me, but somehow the starting point is that everything originates in benevolence. Everything has a purpose. No one creates anything without purpose. In order to create and pursue any purpose, there has to be some true way of doing things. These guys were building mic systems and wires and this and that. Every single wire this poor young fella plugged in all had a purpose. He didn't do it. He was trying to make something happen. And so God created with a purpose. And so there must be something true. No, you don't plug it in there. You're going to blow up the TV. So it's true. You're not mean to say don't plug it in there. You just don't want to blow up your TV. So truth is necessity for anybody creating with purpose. Equality, meaning, creativity, compassion, and harmony. These are the implications of the conservative patriotic axiom. If your axiom, if it's self-evident to you that there's no creator, how could there possibly be a creator when you're looking around and seeing this? Then the first thing is there must be something else that functions in the place of God. And progressive left come up with all kind of stuff, which I'll touch on in a second. So, here it is. Over the course of the modern period from the 1500s on, the first thing that functioned in the place of God was human reason and human purpose. Humans replaced God. Later on, when that didn't work, material replaced God. Ask a Marxist where thinking comes from. They say, can you see thinking? Is it material? Is it matter? And they'll say, matter produces thinking. They'll even say matter produces a human spirit. So matter is functioning in the place of God. And with woke ideologues, system is what, that's why you get systemic racism. It's the system itself that's producing it. It's some kind of free-floating, functioning thing. So if you have a system that denies God, something has to function in its place. And that's what we're dealing with, ideologically. So, removing God, here's a brief crash course in history since the 1500s. Removing God from 1500 to the present. These are 6 phases and cycles, and we're at the 6th one. And that's why we even hold these meetings at all. Basically, religion sets up pretty well. It becomes corrupt and fails. There's a secular violent reaction against the breakdown of good, true, non-corrupt religion. And religion reforms. There's a period of reform. That gets corrupt. And so there's 6 cycles that go like that. So, let me see. Okay. Religion fails, violent secular rage sets in. Religion reforms, prosperity and blessing happens. Religion fails again, violent secular rage steps in, justice through violence and power, wash, rinse, repeat. This is the first one was the Enlightenment, ended up in the guillotine. The second one was the workers' paradise, ended up with 100 million dead. And so the first phase is Christendom, the Holy Roman Empire, where there was a harmonious relationship between political authority and religious authority. It worked very well. It created these magnificent cathedrals. It created magnificent art, created magnificent music, and Europe was fairly okay. during the time of Christendom. What happened was that the clergy became corrupt, and the French Enlightenment philosophers said that God blamed it on God. The corruption of religion is God's fault. There is no such thing as God. And they tried to replace God with human reason. They even worshipped reason during the French Revolution. So Enlightenment, rationalism, humanism, that eventually led to the French Revolution, which eventually led to the Reign of Terror, and tens of thousands of people are brutally murdered, publicly decapitated. This is Europe. This is not Iran. This is Europe. Publicly decapitated. Which slide is that? The barbarism. And it begins with, these corrupt clergy. We'll think, we'll be like Thoreau and Walden Pond, and we're, we don't need these corrupt clergy. We're loving people, and we'll think of enlightened ways of being. As soon as you replace God, it ends up in brutal and violent murder. So religion reforms itself. There's the Reformation. There's the Gutenberg Press. There's the vernacular, the Bible in the vernacular. There's all sorts of things in which religion is revived. And as a result of religion coming closer to people and religion reforming itself, blessing happens again. And so what happens is this incredible period of prosperity, of exploration, of discovery. And so it's another good time, another time of blessing in which religion is behaving properly. What happens finally then is that the people who have inherited the blessing of religious propriety end up corrupted, and there is this horrible exploitation of capitalists, of workers. Marx goes crazy, and he creates a progressive left rejection of God once again. God isn't the problem. The industrialists were the problem. Okay, and so what begins as workers' utopia, what is it called? To each according to their need, these beautiful ideals, ends up with 100 million dead over the course of 70 years. I don't even think people even begin to fathom that. Again, in response to that, in response to Marxism, emerges the reawakening and reform of Christianity. And you have the era of the religious people freeing the slaves, William Wilberforce. You have the era of women's suffrage. You have the era of racial equality, the freeing the slaves, giving up the colonies. In response to the Marxist critique of the corruption of the blessing of prosperity, religion reforms again, and you have this incredible era of Christian prosperity and social blessing. The human equality is growing. Let me see. Spiritual awakening, addressing injustices of capitalist exploitation, ending slavery, ending the colonies, women's rights, racial equality, and Reagan's Christian America defeats Soviet communism. Again, same, I said that, right? 6 cycles. Religion does well, goes corrupt. Secularists introduce systems of rage and violence. There's reform, goes well, and so forth. Not only Reagan, Pope John Paul, Margaret Thatcher. The defeat of communism was a great moment, was a great celebration of the godly, on the God's side. But I have a concern. And then the final thing is, After the fall of communism and the central authority of America in the world, religion fails again. It's an era of moral relativism, sexual relativism, family breakdown, Christian parochialism, and global economic inequality. So the victory we won in 1989 through 1991 over the Soviet communism, there was an obligation for the godly victors to introduce an era of religious propriety. And I will argue and point out, I'll argue that we failed to do that, and that's what allowed wokeism to reintroduce itself. Here I write, the ideological, these gentlemen carefully put a timer on my thing, so I should have been paying attention, but I'm going quite long, but is it feel long? Is it? No. Okay. All right. Okay. Marxism is only secondarily an economic disaster. Its primary point is that it's militant atheism. It's atheistic. And so Marxism was defeated militarily and economically, but not ideologically. No one ever addressed the atheism of communism. Okay? As a result, wokeism re-entered the scenario. What is wokeism? Phase one, it's the third phase of the godless left. I already discussed this. I can roll by this pretty fast. First, the Enlightenment failed. The Christendom fails. The Enlightenment blames God. They replace God with humanism and rationalism. Phase two, the blessing of the Reformation grows corrupt with the industrialists. The Marxists blame God. They replace God and nature with atheism and materialism. Phase three. This is a view, you can yell at me if I'm wrong, corrupt American post-Soviet victors. We did not take care of our moral obligations post-fall of communism, I believe, in some way, or at least to some degree where the progressive left had complaints. They blame God. They replace God and human nature with the social construction of identity. That's why you'll get sex and gender being separated. And systemic oppression. That's where you get DEI and CRT. Okay. How do you get from Marxism to wokeism? From Stalin, the totalitarian genocide and brutality of Stalin depressed believing Marxists. And so they tried to rescue Marxism. And the first effort to rescue Marxism was the Frankfurt School and critical theory, in which they translated the class warfare into gender warfare and racial warfare. And so basically, now your enemy is not just the rich. Your enemy is every white person, every black person, every woman, every man. The conflict ontology. All three forms of progressive radical left is conflict ontology. The basis of reality is conflict, and the Marxists had a basic conflict: rich people, poor workers. The Frankfurt School and critical theory made conflict everywhere. It's everywhere you turn. Everybody is seeking power over you. You're marginalized. That's critical theory. Wokeism rejects even critical theory. And this is the difficult part. It's a little bit tricky, but please stick with me. Wokeism is postmodern critical theory. That's its philosophical basis. Its philosophical basis is postmodern critical theory. It rejects Marxism. It even rejects critical theory. And so it has two absolutely devastating philosophical destructive evils in it. It's postmodern and it's critical. It's inherited three things which make it an almost insurmountable enemy. Let me explain quickly what that is. Here's a summary of postmodern critical theory. Race, gender, and sexuality are socially constructed categories, accessible only in individuals' private lived experiences and social positioning. Can you follow that first paragraph? That means no truth. No truth. Everything is created by narratives that have by their nature marginalization and power disparity. Identities are not fixed essences. They are socially constructed by power, knowledge, narratives designed solely to dominate, humiliate, and marginalize. So as you recall the slide in which I said, if you affirm God, the first thing that you affirm is that the nature of reality originates in benevolence. Correct? Do you remember this? The nature of reality originates in benevolence, and the purpose of creation is the unfolding of harmony, namely love. It's very simple. Thank you. Yeah, it's that simple. Reality originates in benevolence. Its purpose is union. It's achieved through harmony. In other words, God is love. Okay. If you are a Marxist, you'll say that the fact of the ultra-rich, of the capitalists, requires military response. If you're critical theory, Frankfurt School, the middle of the 20th century, the 30s through 80s or something like that, then there's not benevolence, there's conflict in every human relationship. There's power disparity. And also the other thing that happened in the critical period of the Frankfurt School is the invention of the long march through the institutions. So it went from economy to culture. It went from economy to culture, and it went from class division to everywhere all the time. And instead of benevolence, the system produces narratives that are designed to dominate, humiliate, and marginalize. That's why you will have a Harvard graduate sitting in front of a congressperson at a hearing saying that math is racist. We've seen it, we've heard it. We have a Supreme Court justice who was not able to answer what is a woman. Would not be cornered into that. Because to say that is to affirm Eurocentric progressive narratives. The postmodern dimension of wokeism is that any affirmation is evidence of you being an oppressor, because you're using the white man's language. You're using enlightenment. They hate the Enlightenment, even though they originated in the Enlightenment, because you're using the white man's reasoning system. They hate reason, honestly. And so no one will, for you to say something's true, for you to insist something is true, is epistemic violence. It's violence. You should be arrested by the police. You should be hauled off by the police for insisting something is true. This is a form of racism. It's an extension of Eurocentric, of colonialism, and this manifests itself and puts itself inside of every single problem we're facing. Open borders, gender identity, racialism, each and every one of these 10 things are all a direct fruit of postmodern critical theory, and which manifests as wokeism. It manifests in all 10 of these things. So finally, and real apologies for I didn't manage the time as well as I should have, and I apologize for that. But I'll come now to the counter proposal, what I recommend, as in the hopes of coming up with something that can unify us across all of our obligations to deal with the manifold assault of the progressive left, which is rooted in a single philosophical and ideological origin point. Okay. First of all, we're dealing with a confrontation at the axiomatic level. There is a creator. They simply say, no, there's not. And there's no further conversation. Humans are given identity by our creator. No, they aren't. The identity comes through narratives and the systemic generation of identities of power disparity and marginalization. Okay, which all we can do is show what leads to what and have people pick one. That's all you can do. And so what I argue is that where am I? What I want to argue is that argument is not sufficient to overcome an axiomatic confrontation. It's life lived. So the counterproposal is an advocacy of life lived based on these two axioms. Oh, here it is. That's where it was. Okay. It's lived war. Lived war. Ideological war is one at the lived level. So when you have one axiom saying that the nature of reality is conflict, marginalization, and resistance, the lived level is permanent despair, permanent victim mentality, permanent resistance, permanent violence. That is the option. It's a necessity of the ideology. If the conservative patriotic side is going to say our axiom is that all men are created equal, endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, and for the sake of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the pursuit of a more perfect union, if that's our axiom, then we have to live and produce the evidence of the benefit of our axiom. The first one is that if we're going to affirm a creator, we have to live and show that we're faithful to that claim. And if we're going to say that the purpose of our country is the pursuit of a more perfect union, then we have to also live and manifest life is evidence of that claim. And so if we're going to say that love and harmony and the affirmation of a creator is the foundation of our life, and we want to make our life attractive, one thing I recommend is that's needed for, remember I showed every time there's a religious reformation, every time there's an attack, there's a religious reformation. The religious reformation I'm recommending here now, that's needed now, is greater ecumenical capacity and greater interreligious capacity. Because our axiom is there's a creator. And so if somebody's going to come along and say, I'm a Hindu and I believe there is a creator. In fact, there are many creators. I say, fine, you're with me, I'm with you. If that's my axiom, then we are allies. And so greater ecumenical capacity and greater interreligious capacity. This is crucial. This is a crucial behavioral requirement of the conservative and patriotic right. It's a very difficult ask. I've given this lecture, and I had a lot of people come up against me. Well, I can't go that far. I believe in Jesus as the only begotten. And I get that. I get that. Like people come right at me. And I'm saying, yeah, I believe Jesus is the only begotten Son of God myself, and I believe that he was crucified, dead, and buried, rose on the third day for forgiveness of my sins. Nobody believes that more than me, but I'm not going to turn away a Muslim who loves America and who says God is good. So it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. And there's a big spiritual rebirth from the Kirk tragedy, but there is a side of Christian renewal that is a little parochial. Forgive me, I don't know what's the audience I got here, but I really think that if we're going to fight this fight, we have to start to become as unified as the progressive left, and as purposeful. The second thing is that if we're going to say that we're free and we're free to pursue happiness, there's a certain thing I'd like to recommend to Christian believers or godly believers is to invest in what is the redefinition of happiness. If we're going to allow happiness to be trapped in materialistic motifs, we can't win that war. I believe happiness comes in the phenomenon of family. My granddaughter had her 2-year-old birthday today, and I called her on one of these face things, and she had a balloon like my son, her dad, is saying, "Oh, she's not sorry, she's distracted by her balloon, but they put her on anyway." She goes, "Balloon," something like that. I mean, there's no more happiness than that. And then the kid said, "Oh, Dad, that's really nice of you. You're going to go give a speech, but you remembered how..." I believe that as believers of the God side, of the patriotic side, or something like that, we really have to somehow ward off and stand ideologically against the materialist definition of happiness. I think we're easily sucked in. And so the family, and also marginalized. I remember one time I got in trouble in high school. I'm not going to say what I did, but the dean brought me home, left me in the living room, and oh man, I thought I deserved to die, and I thought I was going to get killed. Also, both of those things, And the dean left. He left me alone with my mom, and I said, "You sure you want to do this? You might be complicit in a murder." And my mom said, the first thing she said to me was, "Frank, no matter what you've ever done, come home. Never think you can't come home." It's always stuck with me. And talk about marginalization. I mean, talk about marginalization. I was marginalized right there. I was kicked out of high school. But that's where marginalization is cured, in the love of a family. So happiness is cured in the love of family. In inequality, disparity, power disparity, it's all cured in the love of a family. And so again, I highly argue and deeply beg the religious and Christian people to be much more committed to the issue of family. And this is one of the things I love about Kirk and his family. That his message was not only, believe in the saving power of Jesus, and which is true, of course is true. And he was that, he believed that. But he goes, young men marry, get married and have children. It was a huge part of his, and I was really grateful for that. Because the family is the secret where the pursuit of happiness, once we define happiness properly, is where we can, at the lived level, fight the axiomatic war. Okay, yeah, that's what I just discussed. So the family has 7 things about it. It has 4 loves and 3 generations. 4 loves, 3 generations. Think of the family as the number 7. The 4 loves are this. Parents love their children. There is nothing like that. There is nothing in the world like that. Children love their parents. There is nothing in the world like that. They're not interchangeable. They're not blendable. They are distinct and different things. And if you're 80 years old, your capacity to love your parents is so mature, is so mature. You've worked on that for 80 straight years. You don't only love your parents when you're 4 or 5 or 13 or 20 or something like that. It's a singular type of love that matures forever, literally forever. And then the other one is conjugal love, husband and wife. Wife loves husband, husband loves wife, conjugal love. It is a distinct love with its own complete own boundaries. And finally, there's siblings love. Each one of these 4 loves are the recipe of family. And then there are, there they are, okay? And then there are the 3 generations, the grandparents, the parents, and the children. The honor of tradition, the dignity of the elder, the wisdom of the elder. There's nothing like it. No one has it. I remember only old people used to be able to afford a BMW back in the day. Now 17-year-olds are driving them. And I'm thinking, you don't know what it's like to own one. You should have worked your whole life and finally got one just before you died. So, but we need to know that there's something that having grown old gives you something that no one can ever have. Parents, they're in the middle of the fight. Our sound guy has a 7-week-old baby and somehow has managed to give all of his time here. Everybody, because he's doing the sound today, he had to sleep here last night. And we're saying, we're so sorry. We're so sorry that you had to not go home. He goes, are you kidding me? This is the first night I slept in 7 weeks. So the life of the parents is its own thing. It's a generational thing. We honor them as much as we honor the old. You know what I mean? You can't, And then finally the children, the hope of the future, the princes and princesses, the ones who it's all for. So remember, the family is 7 things. It's 4 loves, 3 generations. And so what I conclude with is that the axiomatic battle can only be fought at the lived level because it's inarguable. You're at a point where it's inarguable. We believe these things to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It's not self-evident to me. I don't see the equality at all. There's no more argument there. They said it's self-evident. And so the only thing to do in this battle is to present the case at a lived level. And I think that what the conservative right has to do is to be repentful and more committed to ecumenical mindedness and interreligious mindedness. We must have more allies. We must be more one. We can't divide off from each other. And hold your faith, absolutely. Like be arm in arm with somebody who you're sure is going to hell, just as, we're fighting for the kids, And also the family, redefine happiness, and the family is the point. This is what will win our war. I'm way crazy over time, and I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Can we get, anybody have one question? Anybody? We just get one question at a time. Carol, yes. One more, Carol, a minute.
Okay.
We have time for one.
The schema that you present of historical, cyclical things, I had never perceived it that way, but I believe you're spot on. But when COVID happened, the false narrative and the lockdown made me question all the things I'd been taught before and all the things I had assumed. Now I've lived more than half of the 20th century, and I went back to those time periods, and I feel like I've had to revise my perception of the reality of those events. And the latest one for me, and I'd like to know your opinion, because of all these givens. Oh yeah, that was good. That was good. That was good. Someone mentioned Vatican II and John the 23rd. And I realized he broke the tradition of the Catholic Church. And what we have now in the last 2-3 decades have been woke popes. And we've got another one now. Was this a part of the breakdown of religion when Vatican II occurred?
Boy, that's a great question. It's a great one. I can't guess because there seems to be some good from it.
That's what I thought. I assumed that.
Right.
Now I see maybe there's a chink in the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I go to an Episcopalian church most of the time, right? And I just love the ancient reminiscence of the old sounds and the old, and I think, yeah. So it's a hard one on me because I see some benefits from it, and I see that analysis as a possible part of the breakdown. I'm not trying to be a politician here, but yeah.
One more question, anyone? Back here.
Ava.
We have Ava. Here we go.
Yeah, hello. Great presentation. Very interesting how you, sort of analyzed and gave an understanding of what's going on. And I have, I embrace a lot of the models and the things that you shared. One question I have that very much is a conflict within my heart. How can we unite families? Because with all of this that has happened, the families are literally, left, right, in my own family. And so the question is, I understand what you're saying, how we should do this, but, I have not found the recipe yet. No matter how much, I think that the change starts with us. If we don't change, we can't change anything else. But my question is, my family is divided.
Yeah.
And so that would be something, maybe the next step that you're developing, maybe.
Very good, Eva. Very good. Yeah, it's a great recommendation, and we've really been broken. And that's why I named it settlement. After all differences are settled. This is why I named the organization, precisely because our oneness is not only as a conservative community, but ultimately our oneness as Americans, and our families are broken. I just had a conversation with a friend prior to coming on, asked me the exact same question, and I think that even though I've been harsh on the progressive left, and rightfully so, nevertheless, I think I've introduced something. They don't believe they're bad people. And that's the beginning of, it's the beginning of being able to, I don't know, can you please tell me how you can affirm this? It's the beginning of listening. It might help a little bit.
No, I think that's a good point, yes.
Thank you.
Listening and acknowledging, because I think with acknowledgement you can open at least the door a little bit and start the dialogue.
Start the dialogue.
The dialogue is important.
There's so much keeping us apart. The avarice of the algorithm, and there's so much keeping us apart.
Yeah.
But we just got to work on it or not. No other choice.
Well, thank you, because
Well,
I
thank
think
you, Dr.
this is very important what you're doing, and we all need to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Dr. Kaufmann. Appreciate that. Beautiful. Wow, that's a lot.